According to a recent NPR PBS poll, nearly 2/3 of adults in the United States say climate change is noticeably affecting their local communities, and a majority of Americans see climate change as causing serious effects right now.
Now, I'd like to invite Nick Forster to the stage, who is the proprietor and the founder of eTown Hall, and all the good work, honoring all the good work he's been doing, I believe, since about 1992. Hi, Nick. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Chip.
Thanks for coming home.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I'm thrilled that we get to host AREDAY here at eTown Hall. As Chip mentioned, we've been on the radio for 32 years now, using live music to build an audience and to talk about climate and to talk about democracy, to talk about engagement, talk about sustainability. And it's been a wonderful journey. It's been an interesting opportunity to try to stimulate dialogue around the country. I was going to be very proud of all the things we've done here before I heard Amy's talk about all the things the CSU campus is doing. We do have 56 kilowatts of PV up on the roof, and we're not running natural gas into this building, which is pretty cool, but not really scaling like you are. But I'm happy, again, for that reason. This is a very green building, an appropriate home for AREDAY. And I love the themes of connecting democracy and climate. It's absolutely critical. Our next guest is somebody who has been defending democracy. You know, we've presumed for generations that democracy is kind of just going to happen. It's kind of stable. We vote, it happens, votes are counted. We now live in an era where that's not something we can presume anymore. And secretaries of state around the country have that responsibility more than anyone else. We're lucky in Colorado to have a great Secretary of State who's passionate and fiercely defending democracy. So please welcome Jenna Griswold.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? Caffeinated? No? Okay. Then I'll bring my energy down a notch if people haven't had enough coffee. Well, I just really appreciate being here. Thank you to Chip and to AREDAY for your phenomenal work. Amy, you're such an inspiration. And I think it's not very often you hear presidents of universities really lay out a good vision for the future. So thank you for your leadership in the space. And to dive right into it, you know, we're sitting in Boulder. I grew up in the canyon leading up to Estes Park that was blown out 10 years ago. We are just celebrated the 10th anniversary of that big flood. And if you all remember, there was hazard zones on school playgrounds right here in Boulder. And over the last 10 years, over the last 20 and 30 years, we have seen Colorado's landscapes tremendously change. Every fire season, which we used to think was just in the summer, now might be in the winter, brings a host of anxiety. Will my house make it? We closely watch the winter snowpack. We wonder whether those floods will return. Coloradans have seen the threats of climate change and environmental pollution with our own eyes. We feel its effects in the air that we breathe and the prices we pay at the grocery store. But it's not just us here in Colorado. According to a recent NPR PBS poll, nearly 2/3 of adults in the United States say climate change is noticeably affecting their local communities, and a majority of Americans see climate change as causing serious effects right now. Yet there are elected officials all over this country who will tell their constituents that there is no problem and there's no urgency to act. They're happy to spend time, their evenings, their weekends with the big polluter CEOs, but have no time for the kids with asthma that is skyrocketing. And when their constituents want to hold these elected officials accountable at the ballot box, the voters must contend with confusing and constantly changing requirements to be able to cast a ballot. There is a profound connection between a strong democracy and the ability of society to address the climate and conservation crises that we face. There was a time just 50 years ago when Congress was able to take bipartisan action to pass landmark pieces of legislation to tackle pollution and protect public lands. The creation of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Clean Air Act, and the creation of the EPA are just a couple of examples. But just as our natural landscapes have changed around us, so has our ability for government to function. Since that time of bipartisan action, we've seen bad actors chip away at our most foundational of rights, which is our democracy. Extreme politicians and judges, bolstered by their wealthy donors and corporate special interests, opened the floodgates of corrosive dark money, taking voices away from the American people and giving it to wealthy corporate interests, including some of the worst corporate polluters. The Voting Rights Act was next, gutted, to enable further voter suppression laws across the country, taking away voters' ability to hold these extreme elected officials accountable when they fail to deliver on issues, like ensuring communities have clean air and clean water. And then highly gerrymandered congressional maps, which give politicians the ability to kick out voters from their districts that they don't like. And consequently, gerrymandered maps strip Americans of the constitutional right to choose the true person to represent us. And these attacks on democracy have only intensified since 2020. We've seen hundreds of voter suppression bills, fake audits to undermine confidence, and candidates who are unwilling to accept the outcome of free and fair elections unless they win. That's not how elections work. Worse, we've seen bad actors threaten the very people who are running elections, including here in the state of Colorado, where since 2020, 30% of elected county clerks have stepped down or taken an early retirement. The extremist goal is very easy: weaken our democratic system so that voters doubt the results, they doubt their power at the polls, and so that the people who are in power already get to stay there. Increasing access to the ballot box scares bad actors because it means that they have to change how they've done business for the last decades. And you better believe it that access to the ballot box scares the worst corporate polluters also. Now, here in Colorado, we are very lucky to be considered the gold standard of election access, the gold standard of voting security. And since becoming Secretary of State 5 years ago, we've worked to increase that. We've stopped the voter suppression bills, not one has passed, and we've increased access. 65% more ballot drop boxes, automatic voter registration, guaranteed access on every public university so that young people can make their voices heard. Partnership with the tribes, a 20% increase in tribal voting. We're leading the way. And when county clerk partners, the people elected by the counties to actually execute the vote, have been threatened, I've taken action. Banning fake audits, leading legislation to make it a crime to dox or retaliate against election workers. The same for voters. I was proud to lead legislation to prohibit open carry near a drop box or a voting center. Shouldn't be scared to cast a ballot in the state of Colorado. Take that seriously. I'm committed to doing the hard work, just like I know all of you guys are, in protecting our democracy. And like protecting democracy, making sure that we quickly get in front of the climate crisis that is here and coming has to be work that we dedicate ourselves to. We must protect the right to vote so that the people can have their say instead of the big polluters, and demand a clean energy future for the state of Colorado and for the nation. And I think it's worth noting that the communities that are most targeted by voter suppression are also bearing the worst consequences of environmental destruction. Low-income communities, communities of color, and Native communities. The path to a stronger democracy and a more sustainable future must be undertaken with equity and inclusion as guiding principles. And that's exactly what we're doing in the state of Colorado. You know, growing up in the canyon leading to Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park was my background. I was just up there 2 weekends ago, moose peeping and elk peeping to see all the elk in rut. And I think it's so amazing that we live in a place that Americans and people from all across the globe dream about seeing. That's why they come here. Imagine growing up in a low-income community in New York and never seeing the stars. Imagine never seeing an open field or the leaves changing in the fall. There's so much that we have to protect here. And when it comes down to it, I think we are absolutely on the right path. Just like we're protecting democracy, I'm so confident that many of you who are the local leaders that are demanding more at every level of government will take us to a better future where we know that our kids are going to have the same beautiful landscapes that we have. So thank you all. Thank you for having me, and I'll send it back to Chip.